Everybody's got a story. You just have to listen. Oh, I'm Joe Pardavila, and this is Good Listen. And today, actor, writer, and comedian Jamie Aderski joins me on the podcast. Now, Jamie's life is full of all sorts of twists and turns. She dreamed of being an actress, but she somehow found her way to become a TikTok star. Her story is full of just inspiration and fun and humor and just a great way to live your life. So let's get to it. Jamie Aderski, welcome to Good Listen. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great.
Well, I'm glad you're great, and I want to talk about this amazing transition that you've undergone, because you started as a young, bright, vibrant comedian, actress in New York City, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're married and have kids, and like your entire perspective on the world has changed, right? Because as a comedian, it's like truth in comedy. As you know, we've all done the UCB classes and trying to find the truth in it. And so your truth as a young person was probably like your life, what was going on. And then all of a sudden, like this huge life shift happens. And then essentially your comedic perspective shifts. So let's start with the original. When you first saw yourself being an actress, comedian, writer, what were you envisioning? What were your goals? Because I always like to say, like, as a kid, my dream was to be the next David Letterman. It didn't turn out that way, but I ended up having a pretty decent career anyway. But like as a kid, did you grow up envisioning yourself as a certain actress, creator? What was your perspective at that time?
Definitely. So when I was little, my mom said I used to say, I want to be in commercials. I thought that was the road paved with gold was commercials. But I was always in the performing arts my whole life. I always knew I wanted to be an actor, a singer. When I was younger, I did a lot of dance, and I did a lot of singing. I was really into Broadway, and I thought that I was going to be on Broadway. That was my dream. That did not quite happen, but other things, same as you, other great things happened. So that's originally my plan. I went to school to be a musical theater major, Wagner College, and then I ended up dropping out after 6 months. I was going to go to a program called Point Park that had more of a stronger dance program, and I was an excellent dancer. I thought, hey, this is going to be my way onto Broadway. I'm a really good singer. I am not the best singer, but I'm an awesome performer and an awesome dancer. So let me really focus on that. And then I ended up, over Christmas break, I booked an equity musical. So I ended up doing that, and then I just kept booking work. So I didn't go back to college. Then I ended up getting a record deal, which is kind of was interesting. We had a development deal on Epic Records, and that was I could do a whole podcast about that experience, because that was wild. This was, right after Britney Spears broke, and it was very much girl band, boy band era.
And you're literally a kid, right? You're in your teens at this point?
When I started with the group, I was 19.
Okay.
Or I was 19 or 20. And, we were together for like 2 years, and then a year or two we were recording. We were playing out at different venues in the city, meeting different record labels, and then we got this development deal from Epic.
What was the name of the band? You got to share the name of the bands in case there's any old fans out there.
Yeah. We were the Velvet Girls.
Okay.
So it was wild. We had like a Kiss kind of theme. So I was the cat, and I had like crazy cat makeup, and then we had another girl. She was like Starman, kind of
Wow.
That vibe. Who is that singer? Why can't I think of the name?
Paul Stanley.
Yes, exactly. And then we had more of like a space vibe, not quite the star, but like a space crazy vibe. I don't like the tongue guy. Who's the tongue guy? Like that was her.
Simmons. Yep.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was crazy. We played Stone Pony. We played with Funkadelic. We like all kinds of. Anyway, let's not take up the whole time
Wow,
with.
that's awesome. That's great though. Like I think most people watching this were never in a girl or boy band, so that's really cool. So please don't just like shuffle that off. Like that's really cool. But it sounds like you said you were together for a couple of years. I guess there was
Yeah,
no golden ring at the
we
end of
got
that journey.
dropped. So, yeah, like, we recorded a few songs, I met some really cool people, had amazing experiences. We got dropped. Then I got picked up again for a deal on DreamWorks Records as a duo with a DJ, and they ended up not going with me. I was 23, they said I was too old.
Oh,
So, like, I did the music video and all this stuff, and then in the end, I didn't get it, but, then I moved to New York, and I went to acting school, started taking that very seriously, got an agent for commercials, I did some modeling, I did, a lot of really cool things as well, acting and modeling and meeting people and waitressing, and, I met my husband. Um, yeah, and then I got comedy.
so yeah, so let's talk about that. Well, before you get to the comedy pivot, let's talk about the acting pivot. So, because I think people always have this where they want to follow their dreams, but then they have this realization, this ain't happening for me.
Yeah,
And you were still pretty young. Like, I think
yeah,
we can all say that if you're in your 20s, you're still an emotional wreck. I mean, we're an emotional wreck in your middle age too, but like even
yeah,
worse in your 20s because you're trying to quote unquote find yourself.
yeah.
So, what was that moment like? I don't know if it was like one moment or a series of moments where you're like, oh shit, I guess I'm not going to be the singer I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, so, that second time when like, I had people pumping me up telling me I was gonna be the next Madonna, I was gonna be the next Britney, and it was amazing and terrifying, and, when we got dropped from the initial label, it was like, "Okay." I knew a lot I met a lot of people in the industry, and then when I got picked up by this production company working with DreamWorks, was like, "Okay, this is it," and we worked with, someone from Luscious Jackson, I can't remember anyone's name, it was so long ago. Jill Cuniff, so she was part of it too, so I would, like, sing vocals with her, and, um, it was just really cool, and then when that fell through, like, I was pretty devastated, but I also was really young, and I knew what I had, like, I
You
you know,
still
I
had confidence in your ability. You weren't. You
yeah,
didn't think like, oh god, am I a hack or anything like that?
no, I wasn't it really wasn't that at all. I think, it's much harder as you get older to recover from these things in certain ways, but also easier because you care less about what people think, you know?
Right.
So, it was easy in a lot of ways because then I just picked up and I moved to New York and, I started on all those amazing adventures you have in your 20s in New York City. And, um, yeah, I went to an acting conservatory for 2 years and, really got serious about acting. Um, and then that was a whole other thing because I realized, hey, I forgot that I'm really funny. And like I was always like the funny person in high school, and I was voted like most likely to be famous and class performer. But people that really knew me knew that I was funny. But also, I grew up in a time when it was like, well, women aren't funny. Like women should just be pretty, and that was very much like I don't come from a performing family background. I come from a very blue collar background, and it was, kind of like just make the most of what you have, and you're cute, so that's what you should do. Like use that, be a weather girl, which is very depressing thinking about that now. I would never say that to my daughter, but
Yeah.
it, it's like that's kind of the world that I grew up in. Like I didn't have a lot of like people that I saw that were doing what I was doing, so it was just kind of like hustling as much as I could to make the most of anything that I had and what I wanted to do, which was perform and do, creative things. Um, so yeah, so I would say, going down the acting route, which is also, of course, heartbreaking in many ways, I got to the point where I was in, like I had some big agents that were really interested in me. And in the end, it would come down to, well, you're not going to book these funny roles. Like, you need to be sexier. You need to, an acting teacher literally told me I need to use my lips more on camera when I speak. So, this was someone that a really big agent, a huge agent, she was really interested in me to sign me. And she sent me to this acting teacher, very popular acting teacher in New York. And that was her note to me. You're not going to book these funny parts. Stop trying to be funny. Although you are funny, but that for me, that was the end. That was the beginning of the end for me, like trying to really pursue an acting career. And I think that was probably the most heartbreaking of like all the things I had experienced because I finally felt like I was being myself and like really, at this point I was like early 30s or like late 20s, early 30s. And I was like, I finally got it. Like I know who I am. I've studied, like I have the background. It's all coming together. I'm funny. Like this is what I do. And then for someone who you admire so much, to say, no, like you're not going to fix that. So it was just kind of, again, like I had to really rethink. Like I feel like a theme of my life has been like pivoting, just
Yeah.
constantly pivoting and being okay with that. And it is that struggle. It's like that down and then you're up and then you're down and then you're up. So that's when I found the People's Improv Theater, which is where I met you.
Yeah, the pit. And all right, but before we go there, I need to ask,
Yeah. Yeah.
what does it mean to use your lips more? What does that mean?
Joe, I'm still trying to figure it out. I know, like, I literally, like, it was an on-camera class, and I'm, like, sitting there, and, like, she said this in front of everybody. She also told me I needed to lose weight, and I was a size 4.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the other thing. I was constantly getting that, like, you need to, again, size 4, beautiful, 20s, early 30s. Oh, looked way younger than I was, and still it was never enough. Like, no one was really listening or watching what I was doing. It was like, no, you need to be sexy. Talk with your lips more. I'm like, I don't do that.
That is crazy. Like
Yeah.
that is like and this is not that long ago. I know we all feel, you and I, Jamie, probably feel like we're ancient, but like that was not that long ago. Like that's a story you would hear from like 1950s
Yeah.
Hollywood, like on the set of MGM somewhere. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy that was still going on in the in the 2000s. It's bizarro. All right, so you mentioned the People's Improv Theater, famously known as the Pit. I performed there. You performed much better there than I am. I was essentially a hack. I was just working my way through, but last season I had James the Third on, who's an amazing sketch performer,
Ugh,
writer, played
I
on UCB.
love him.
And we talked about this weird world of sketch comedy.
Yeah.
And for him, it was really, I mean, you talked about the barrier of like, oh, you need to be pretty enough. Women can't be funny. He was this black dude trying to get in sketch comedy with Jamie. As you know, all the people look like us. It's all a bunch of white people who had pretty decent backgrounds, who thought they could be funny. They want to be on SNL. He
Yeah.
had a tough time doing it. So tell me about your perspective. And you mentioned the fact that women aren't considered quote unquote funny. What
Mhm.
was it like to be in that world where, yeah, women can be funny and
Yeah.
women are funny? Did that just seem to open up like a new world for you because you were in such an accepting place?
Yes, I actually, like, I get chills thinking about it because it really, I took my first class there and I was like, this is it. This is, and not in a way of like, like that, the stress of like, this is it. I gotta have this. Like, not like that, but I felt so comfortable and also out of my comfort zone at the same time because, the way I had trained as an actor, there is that element of being in the moment, but as a person and as an actor, it's something I always struggled with. Like for me, that was always the hardest thing. And I still struggle with is really being in the moment and not anticipating. And something that improv comedy teaches you is that you have to be in the moment or you're done. You can't function on stage if you're trying to think 2 steps ahead. So that was so freeing for me, not just as an artist, but as a person. And it's something that I still pull from and I still work on, I still think about. And that was just such a special message to get, after all, like the bullshit from people of like, you're not this, you're not that, you're not enough of this. Like, I think one thing that's really special about improv comedy is that it is so accepting and that everyone really does have a place there as long as you're a good person.
Yeah.
So, um, there's something really, really magical and special about it. And especially at that time period in New York City, it really was electric. Like that improv comedy scene. I don't know that it will ever be that again. Try to explain it to people, it was just the place to be. I mean, and it was such the thing about improv comedy as well, it's very different from stand up, where stand up is very much more a messy kind of mean in a lot of ways. And I think that's why I love doing stand up, but I'm not as drawn to it because of the realm of it is not, it's kind of mean sometimes. It's, a little more cutthroat in a way that, like, let's say acting is, and, the things I didn't enjoy about that. Whereas improv, you work as a team, you're an ensemble. Um, so as much as you're working on your own craft, you are working in a group and you have to make it work. So that to me, as a human, as an artist, that is such an amazing skill to have and to work on, and it just makes you better.
Yeah, and we were so lucky to be in. You mentioned this sort of golden age of improv. Well, I mean, and it might have been oversaturation, looking back at it now. But if you were in New York in the early mid 2000s, you could go to 3 theaters that had comedy running 7 days a week, and then you also had Jamie. I'm sure you know those random offshoots where there was like a basement that you could
The
perform in at
best.
noon on a Wednesday or something like that. So that was, and I think I think a lot of people at the time were complaining. I remember Bob Odenkirk. I remember he went to that big thing that UCB used to do every year, the Odell Close Festival. Remember they did those
Yeah.
there was like that big weekend, and he performed at one, and he talked about how it's just way too much of it, and I think that's probably what kind of undid it at the end, that and the pandemic. But still, the idea that you could be a performer and literally perform every night of the week and even during the day was
Yeah.
such an amazing time. And like you said, I don't think we'll ever see that again.
No, it's too expensive, and I was the artistic director, one of the artistic directors at the Pit for a while, and I saw that firsthand, that other side of, well, you need to pay the bills. And I think, that was part of the implosion of it, is that it's not sustainable for theaters to put up these teams night after night and not really make money from them. Um, so yeah, I mean, it is an oversaturation too, of course. There was just so much at that point. But I am glad to see that, new theaters are popping up in the city, and like Second City and UCB is reopening, and the Pit is still going strong. I was there like a month ago doing a show, and it was really fun. These are so important for people coming up in the comedy world to have access to those. And I hope that they know now how lucky they are, because I feel like a lot of people didn't, before the pandemic, realize what an honor and a gift it was to have these spaces to play at. I would put on plays with my my graduate friends of my Meisner acting school, and we would have to pay to book these theaters, to get people to come see us. You don't have to pay to do a show at the Pit,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And a
Well,
lot.
they also did have the odd business model, Jamie, as you know. This was actually well written about. Even the New York Times picked this up, that a lot of these theaters didn't pay the performers.
Yeah,
So
that's
that there
another
was
thing.
also that issue, which
Yeah,
there's only going to be a certain time where people are like, yes, I'm going to perform for free for this
yeah,
theater to make money. So that was also, again, not the perfect model, but again,
no,
a great time if you're a performer, because if you wanted to perform, you could perform.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, of course, there's that a dual issue of not being paid, absolutely, and I see all sides of it. Um, I will say that I do think it's, not having to pay performers, depending on what the show is, it gives people the, ability to, cut their teeth and really get a chance to perform. So I think there is like a threshold for that. But yes, it's all part of why it kind of imploded on itself, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. And
All right, well, let's get into what you actually ended up doing there, because you felt like a lot of us in that world. The gateway drug was improv. That's how you kind of started, and then all of a sudden you work into sketch, and then obviously in the improv world you develop the important word of character, like creating characters in your performance, and that was sort of your bag. Like you created characters, I guess, starting in your improv days, and then you brought that into the sketch world. So tell me about developing these characters and how it became such a big part of your comedy career. It was like literally like creating these fresh characters that would perform usually I know you did a lot of solo shows, but take us back to those days of character development.
yeah, so my style of improv just ended up being what came naturally to me, which was a lot of character work, which again I discovered through the practice of doing improv. And with my acting background and my sense of humor, I'm such like a Waiting for Guffman fan. Like I love any kind of humor that is like almost not meant to be humor. Like we're really laughing at the person, and it feels real but not real. And so that's what I was drawn to in improv. And then that gave me the I don't say courage, but like it inspired me to then write some of these down and start to really work on these characters, which I did, and I, performed them live, and then started putting them on tape and working with some other people, um, working on characters together. And I feel like again that helped me really find my voice, who I am as a performer and a person. I really am interested in people. I ended up going back to college and got a degree in psychology. And I thought at one point maybe I was going to be a psychologist, a really fun, funny psychologist.
You have to use your lips more, though. I think
Yes.
it's be very important. Yeah.
Yes.
What were some of those characters early on? Because I think, and if you can give a little context to this, because people may be like, characters. What do you mean, like a cartoon character? Like, who are these people you were embodying in those early
Yeah.
days?
So a comedic, version of a person, a personification of a person, as a character. So, think of like a larger than life person, someone that you might see, written as a character on SNL. I had a character I did that was a very difficult child, very spoiled in a lot of ways. And his name was Timmy, and I loved him. And now I have an 8-year-old son, and he's a little bit like Timmy in some ways. So that is very funny to me.
Well, it makes sense. You created that character and you created your son, so there's something there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I also I created a few of these characters that were older women, eccentric. I just love that. I mean, I love the Golden Girls, and I love taking that even a step further, and really living in that space of, what would it be like to be 75, 80 years old and really not give an F, and just I look forward to that, and I can't wait for that. And so I created a character based on that. I did it with my friend Kayla Merrill, who's a very funny person as well. And we created Sharon and Cheryl, and we would go to different places and, be ourselves, in these characters. And it just brought a lot of joy to us. And really, it seemed like to people around us, confusion and joy. So I did that. And, several different characters I had, written out, and I've gotten on tape. And, yeah, it's cathartic and it's fun, and yeah.
That's awesome. And then at this point, now that you've found your voice, like this is like, oh God, this is what I've been working towards my entire life. What do you do with that then? Because I think people may be watching or listening to this right now be like, okay, so did you make money off of what you were doing? Like, did you make a living off of this? What was going on in the world of Jamie Aderski?
Yeah. Well, so it's really interesting to look back where I am now and see the chain of events that occurred. So, starting with the characters that really got me writing. And I always loved writing. I always loved creative writing, but I never, again, it's that thing where I was like, I never thought I was good enough to do it. And, writing these characters fueled me to do it more and more and more. And then I got to the point where I wrote a solo show. And in the solo show, I had some different characters that I had written into the show, but it was also the first time I wrote as myself, but in an elevated way. So it was really an interesting journey, and I could not have gotten there if I didn't first take that improv class and first start being inspired. And like I tend to work really fast. When I get excited by something, I'm like, I got to get it down. I got to do it. And that's how it was with these characters. And then that's how it was with the show. And then I had a child, and I did another show, and yeah, and I just started writing more and more, and then people started to hire me to write, and that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. You mentioned the child, another pivot in the life of Jamie Aderski, and I did notice, because I remember we've been connected on social media for a while. You were never like the mom person, and then all of a sudden I wake up and then there's truth and momedy. Like it's like now all of a sudden the swinging single Jamie Aderski, who is like performing at 2 a.m. at the Pit, is no longer doing that. Now she's like a fully grown person with multiple children, a home, a happy family life. And then that becomes your comedy. Like that becomes sort of your outlet. So I guess this kind of gets to the time of speaking of social media, how you turned everything all the talent that you had, and then your life story and turned it into comedy that people could consume on social media. So tell me about that moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would start, you know, by saying during the pandemic, had a really hard time, like a lot of performers and a lot of people. We just had, we decided to move out of New York City after having been there for 19 years. And it was just a really hard time. I had had my second baby. She was 5 or 6 months at the time. And I was just going through a lot of things. And I was about to turn, I just turned 40. Um, so it was a hard couple of years for me mentally. And then about, I would say like 8 months ago, I started like feeling good, or even more than that. I would say like a year ago, I was like, I'm starting to feel more like myself. Like something is happening here. I went back to a dance class, and I loved that so much. And then I injured myself again, which I did initially when I was a semi-professional dancer, and that's why I stopped. And then I got really depressed again, and I was like, I thought this was it. I thought I was just going to go to my dance classes, be a mom, be happy, and kind of let go this idea of this comedy career. I had done some stand up in town, and when we first moved here, and like just nothing was really clicking for me. So then, I had it in my head, I should start a TikTok. And people had said this to me before, and I was like, I hate social media. I don't want to I don't know what to do on TikTok. Like, but I like had just had some like work done on my knee. I was on my couch. I really, if you go back and you watch my first TikTok, and I will not take it down because I wanted people to see how sad it is and how like, anyone can do what I'm doing, but you have to actually do it. So, it was January 17th. I made this TikTok, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like I can just like kind of do what I want on here. Being a mom of two kids and working as well, it's hard to find time to perform. And, people kind of stop asking you after a while, and not like poor me, but it's also hard to get something together for yourself. And TikTok ended up being this outlet for me that I can just come up with something and do it, and I'm done. And doing content on TikTok, I've it brings together all of my skills as a performer, as far as improvisation, writing, being on camera. Um, so it's a very interesting tool, and not one that I would have considered, uh, you know, a while ago. I would have just said no. So, um, I think what it is you really have to be as genuinely yourself as you possibly can. And I think I mean, for me, it's always been kind of a struggle. I don't want to, part of it is being a woman in this business where everyone's always telling you, you're not good enough, this, that, the other. Part of it is the world that I grew up in, and, a lot of us grew up in, like it took me a while to find my power. And there have been moments in my life where I have found that power. Like I said, when I had my record deal, when I started at the pit, when those moments have really stood out to me. And then I kind of fell off the cliff, and it was like, I can't see anything. I don't see anything. This is dead. Like I'm giving up on all my dreams. That's it. And then I started this thing, and it lit a fire in me. I had no plans of it doing anything other than just for me. And once I started this thing, I felt so good every morning. I would wake up and I would be like, I'm just going to make a stupid video. Who cares? Like, it made me feel good to think of these things. And I started to get that spark back. And I've been doing it for 7 months, and I've gone viral a couple times, and it's fun. It's also crazy. The internet is full of crazy people that will tell you crazy things. So you have to be okay with that. And by be okay, I mean just like delete and block. Or, the first time I went viral, I got some messages, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, this person is telling me I'm like, a piece of garbage. Like, this is hard. Like, I would never do that. So it's hard to imagine that people spend their time, these trolls, which
Yes.
I knew existed, but I didn't know really existed until now. So that part can be exhausting. I had a video go viral like a couple weeks ago, and it's been a lot of that. a lot of great things, but a lot of that too. So that can be kind of exhausting. So for me now, it's finding the balance of like, how much time do I want to spend on that? I shouldn't spend any time on trolls, but how much time are you
Right.
willing to give that thing? Because I started this as an outlet for me creatively, and that for that it's been successful. But then there is this other element of the more people that see what you do, which is that's awesome, but it's going to be the more opinions and the more BS that's going to be coming at you. So now I'm trying to find that balance of what am I comfortable with giving, um, and what am I getting. So I don't think that's a bad place to be in. I think it's a much better place to be in than I was before I started. So I'll take it.
That's so cool. Who says social media is so bad? I mean, it's obviously been great for you, and not just in terms of like career wise, but just like it feels like it's sort of like the outside has sort of been put inside. Like, oh, all of a sudden, like I'm performing, having fun, but it's also making me feel great,
Yeah.
which is what at the end of the day, I think as most people who are performers or people on social media, that's really what you want. Because I always joke that I feel like you have to be a performer, you have to have an ego. Like people say, oh, having an ego is bad. But if you think about it, if you're an actor, you have to be an ego to say, yes, I am so good. I need to be projected on a screen that's, 5 stories tall. Like a normal person doesn't think that. So I
Yeah.
think there is like a healthy ego of like, you've got to think you deserve to be on that, whether it's being viewed millions of times like you have on social media or someone who wants to be an actor or on a stage. And I will say this about TikTok, because I was late to the TikTok game too as well, because me as a Gen Xer, I came up in the social media days of like, everything's got to be perfect. It's got to be the perfect lighting. The shot's got to look great. But in a way, TikTok is the brother or sister to improv. Because
Yeah.
Jamie, as you know, most improv theaters are shit. They are just like in the back room of a restaurant. It's
Yeah.
raw, it's gritty.
Yeah.
And that's really what TikTok is. And like the way you've taken to it is like, there's some videos where you have some higher production values, but most of them are very
Yeah.
simple and raw. So
There's
in a way,
no
your
high
improv
production.
spirit animal must have come out, right? In that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's the threshold is low as far as those things, and I think that's what, when I initially, completed my acting degree, or whatever program, they told one of the teachers was like, "You need to get on YouTube and start making videos." I was like, "I can't do that. What, I'm a video editor? Like, no." And even now, that was something exactly like you're saying, it held me back because I was like, "I don't you have to be like James Cameron. Like, I can't edit a video." And now I'm just like boom, 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 boom. But I'm still learning. Like, it's not perfect. But yeah, nothing needs to be perfect. I mean, I will go on, no makeup, just woke up, and then a million people will see it and not be terrified. But that's also not always the case. So you're saying you need to have an ego. And I think that, I would frame that as you need to believe in yourself no matter what. And I think that that has been like a running theme for me and something that I want my kids to look back and be like, my mom never gave up. Um, which is not it's not easy. It's not easy to believe in yourself when you're sitting on your couch and you're like, I haven't done any comedy in I don't know how long. I don't even know anyone in the scene anymore. How I'm in New Jersey. I have 2 kids. I'm 45. How am I going to do anything? So I think you have to believe in yourself and you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and just taking that leap. And again, like I don't have a huge follow. I have 10K followers. I've been doing this 7 months. I've gone viral a few times. It's very cool. There's people that are doing way more cool shit than me, and at the same time, I'll have a video that'll get 300 views. So it's not you can't put all your eggs in that basket of, "Oh, I got 2 million views." Like it's now everything's going to be amazing. No, you still have to like believe in your shit and like try and fail and fail and try. So that's if you're not willing to do that, then I don't think you can be a creative in general, or because you have to be willing to look stupid, and that's the cost of entry for anything, trying something new or being on stage, putting yourself out there. The cost of entry is always looking like a total ass. So um that's part of it. And continuing to look like an ass, but always be a good person. That's what I
Right.
care.
You always go back to the good person. Yes, absolutely. It's the one thing I admire about you, Jamie, is like how comfortable and this you appear to be in your own skin, because I would say most people who are in the entertainment trade would be afraid to say that they're 45. Like, I'm sure you know people like this, like who, if you look them up online, it just says like they're the month they were born and the day, but not the year, because they don't want
Right.
anyone to know how anyone's old. Because one of my running jokes I have in my real life is like the last acceptable ism is ageism. Like
Yeah.
all the others, we've done a good job getting rid of the other ones like sexism and racism, but ageism is one that hangs on. So tell me about that. You being so comfortable in your own skin and be like, fuck, I'm 45. It is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
is that something that you had to work to get there, or is that something you feel like is part of your brand?
I think it's, I think it's both. I think it's more part of who I am. I think like I've certainly had my struggles and my challenges, and I continue to, like anybody else, but I am proud of the fact that I'm a 45-year-old woman who continues to create something, and I want to inspire other women to do that as well. I think it's, it's really it's hard. It's hard out there. So, and life is hard, and I think if you can find something that you love to do and do it, and, if you can get paid for it, even better. But if you can just give yourself that chance, I never, I never want to be like, oh, I'm 45 and I'm so great. That's not what I think. But I think that what I do well is not, like I said, not giving up. And I think it's so important for women our age, and really anyone my age, our age, to be like,
Yeah.
hey, like, we still have a voice. We don't need to like go and disappear. And, with retirement's like 65. So we're not even close. But, because there is that feeling of like, oh, well, who wants me now? Like, I'm 45, I have kids. You got to just believe in yourself. And it's not as easy as that, but hopefully surround yourself with people that support you. I think that's important too. Like, my husband's amazing. My kids are amazing. I have great friends in my life. And I think that's part of why it's important to be a good person too. So you have those things and you can give those things back.
That's so cool. It's funny to talk about the age and the fact that, what someone want to do with a 45. And I always like to say, I think the election cycle, when it was Biden and Trump, a lot of it was age was a big part of it. And the one thing that was odd, I think, to most people was that they're basically the same age, but Trump doesn't play as an 80-year-old. I mean, say what you will. I'm not. If
Yeah.
anyone knows me, they know that I'm your typical card-carrying liberal from New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's me. But like, you see the way the age plays, the way Biden's age plays as opposed to Donald Trump. You cannot take that away from Donald Trump. He does not act like a 80-year-old man. I mean, he can talk for. I mean, what he says is maybe bullshit, but the guy could talk. He can.
To say the least.
He's
Yeah.
grinding 24 hours a day. Biden, and the reason he was sort of forced out was he was playing against his age. Like, he was looking like an 80-year-old. And I think that's sometimes what people don't really look into. They always look at the actual number. Oh, this person is 45. They're too old. They must have no energy. And then obviously, Jamie, if anyone knows you, watching you on TikTok, they know you got plenty of energy. You got the energy to spare for 45. So I think that's why I feel like the world is missing nuance. Like, we're so black and white. We're so data driven that just the nuance of like, oh yeah, but what is that 80-year-old? There's a difference between 80-year-olds. There's a difference between people in their 40s. I had a person once, I can't say his name because he would be sued to death, who ran this production company in Los Angeles, very successful. And he said to me at a lunch, just me and him just bullshitting, he goes, I would never hire someone who's over 35. And I said, well, why? And at the time I was over 35. So I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? He goes, from my experience, people who are over 35 are set in their ways and you can't teach them anything. So again, like, he seemed it was okay for him to say that, but take out the 35 to be like, oh, I would never hire someone who's from Canada.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, that's wrong. So again, it's the nuance of it. It is important that we just see beyond what the paper may say, and it feels like you've grasped that. You get that the nuance is very important.
Absolutely. I think, saying that someone over 35 is set in their ways, I mean, I would say that I'm a case for that not being the case. I think people that are older are some of the most adaptable people because they have to be. To say that that seems like they're stuck in their ways, I think there's more of a breadth of experience to pull from, and there's so many positives about it. I mean, I wouldn't want to be 20 again. I wouldn't mind having that body again, but I like, and being in the city just running around, but it's when I think of my mentality then, I wish that I had what I have now in my brain. I feel like I would have done so much more. But of course, that's always how it is. Youth is wasted on the young. And
Yes, Val, you took the words right out of my mouth. Absolutely. And speaking of the young, you have 2 kids, and I know you were late to the TikTok game, but you've been on social media for decades.
yeah,
Now, because I am one of these people, one of those outliers. Me and my wife don't want to have children. We're too selfish. We like the life we have. People used to make fun of us. They called us dinks, double income, no kids.
yes,
So
amazing.
trust me, it works for me and it works for my
Yeah,
wife.
yeah,
But as a mom, now you have to worry about, oh God, one of these days my kid's gonna ask for a smartphone, and one of these days they're gonna want to be on social media. I know it's kind of early, but have you thought about that? Like how those conversations are going to play out?
yes. So my son he's 8 and he wants to be in the business. He wants to be an actor. He wants, a TikTok account. He wants it all, which against my better judgment. But he is my child.
Again, you made him, so it's expected. Yes.
Yes. So, we don't let him do all those things. Like I have a commercial agent and I've, talked to them about like what it's like for kids in the business and things like that. And I'm in the business, so I know I've worked with kids on sets, and I don't feel that that's a great place for him to be right now. So we're putting that, off as long as possible. But as far as social media, I think what's really important is for him to see me on social media, because he sees what I go through on TikTok, where, I'll make a video and be really excited about it, and then it won't do well. And I tell him about it. I'm like, yeah, I made this video. Like, it didn't get a lot of views, but that doesn't matter because I liked it. I thought it was, he's like, Mom, I thought it was hilarious. I'm like, yeah, me too. We have really good sense of humor. So, he sees that, and I make sure to tell him, like, it's not a failure. Like, you just keep going, or when I have one that does really well and he's like, oh my God, Mom, you're like famous. I'm like, first of all, definitely not. Please don't tell people that. And second of all, that doesn't matter. None of this matters. This is, when he hears me say, oh, someone says something mean about me, and he's like, oh, aren't you upset? I'm like, yeah, of course that doesn't feel good, but these are not people that know me, so we don't care what they say. Like, they don't know us. They don't know what kind of people we are. So that's, we call them a troll and we just don't respond. We just leave that alone. So, I like for him to see all those things as I'm like delving into this world of content creation. That it's not about being perfect, and it's not about having everyone like you, because that's never going to happen. And you're never going to always be perfect. You're never going to be perfect. But again, I think, like you were saying, like that was my image of social media, like the influencer. And I'm like, that's definitely not me, that perfection. And that's why I stayed away from it for so long. And I think for him to see that it's not about perfection, it's actually the opposite. It's about just kind of showing who you are, as comfortable as with, what you're comfortable with giving and with showing people. But you're not giving it away. It all belongs to you, and you have a say in what you create. And then you can't control other people, just like in life. You can't control what other people think about you, say about you, do. Most of the stuff in life we cannot control. The only thing you can control is your brain and how you feel about yourself and how you think. And there'll be days where I'm like, I don't want to go on TikTok. I don't want to do any of this because I'm a human and I don't always feel like creating something, like I just kind of feel like chilling and not thinking about it.
Man, those are some really deep conversations with an 8-year-old. I think my conversation with my mom was like, don't eat your boogers. Like, these are really deep conversations here.
that is very much who he is. He's an old soul for sure. As much as I always hated when people said that, "Oh, he's an old soul," he really is. I mean, he's like a really sensitive dude and is very inquisitive about everything in life. And um, I think I didn't expect that this would be helpful in some way for him to see this, but I can see that it is. Um, letting him know, like, 'cause, he has like a couple little videos on YouTube. He's like, no one's liking it. I'm not getting the thumbs up. I'm like, dude, it's not about that. Like, and then he sees that I truly am living that. Like, I'm like, you know, this video tanks, this one does great, this one tanks. Like, it's fine. Who cares? None of this matters. It really doesn't.
Those are
So
some great lessons. Those are amazing. I mean, it's so funny. It's such a, like, if you tried to win in a time machine, Jamie, and went back to your 20-year-old self and said, hey, I'm going to one day talk to my son about the fact that nobody cares what you think. And it's like, it's such an unreal world we live in. But I think even though it's such a hyper-focused thing you're talking about, whether it's, reactions to social media and stuff like that, these are lessons that will help him for the rest of his life outside of social media. So I think in a way, again, social media, not so bad. It's actually helping you show your son that it's important to enjoy what you're doing and make that the barometer for why you would do something.
yeah, exactly. Really, again, like, because I was not a fan of social media, so it is very unexpected that these are the lessons. But this is, what I'm getting from it right now is outweighs the negative, and I think that it can be that way for a lot of people. I think like anything, it's you overindulge in it or this or that, and if I see myself doing that, or I see myself getting too bogged down or upset about something someone said, or whatever, then I stop. Like, it's fine. Like, it I don't know, I can just keep saying it, like, social media does not fucking matter. It really doesn't. Like, so I think just having that attitude and working on that, it's not always easy, because when you succeed at something, you want to keep it going, of course. But, you know, the older you get, you do realize life is this and social media is this. Like,
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, so let's end on a positive on about your TikTok account, because you mentioned millions of views, hundreds of thousands of likes, 10,000 followers. Nothing to sneeze at. You've only been doing this for less than a year. What have been some of your favorite interactions with folks who've reached out to you? You mentioned the troll, so let's go ahead and
yeah.
table that. What have been some of your great reactions you've had to people? Because obviously, if you're getting this sort of impact, people are liking what you're doing. So tell me about some of these interactions.
Well, it's so cool for someone that you don't know to recognize that you're funny and to appreciate it and take the time to write a comment. I had someone say, get Lauren on the phone. This woman needs to be on SNL. I've had multiple comments like that. People were like, give this woman an Oscar. Who is her agent? So that the ego is very happy with that. Like, I am funny. I am a great actor. Like, yeah. And besides that, even just meeting other parents, other women my age, other moms, and seeing their content and helping to support them. And that has been that has brought me a lot of joy to see other people succeed. And I think that that's something, again, as you get older, how important that is to, like, keep clapping for people until it's your turn, because it will be your turn. And when it is, it's no fun if no one is there to clap with you. And it just makes me feel good to make connections. Again, like, we're on social media. We're not, in person or anything like that. But, it is nice to meet new people and see what they're creating and learn about them. Again, like, the core of who I am, I'm interested in people and stories. And, you know, social media does have that. You got to, like, dig through a lot of garbage to get to the good stuff. But I feel like I've met a lot of really cool, interesting people. And that's fun.
That's awesome. All right. Well, folks who want to be introduced to the journey of Truth and Momedy, where should they start? What's, social handles, websites? Share that as we wrap things up here.
So you can follow me on TikTok at Jamie Aderski. And I just started an Instagram page as well. That's at Truth and Momedy, Jamie Aderski. My website, jamieaderski.com. It's really just all Jamie Aderski. And apparently I'm the only one in the world with that last name. So
Well, welcome to the club. It's actually great for Google. So yes. So when everyone's looking up for me, there's not a lot of idiots named Joe Pardavila. So same with Jamie Aderski. So that's, you're an idiot, but I'm just saying that there's no other people like us out there.
Sometimes I am. It's okay.
Yeah. Jamie, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was great. Thank you so much.
And that's today's Good Listen. If you enjoyed our chat, please make sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. It's a small gesture, but it really helps my channel. You can connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram at Joe Pardavila, or on TikTok at J Pardavila. If you want to shoot me a note and tell me your story, you can write to me at joepardavila@protonmail.com. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. Until next time, adios.